My lab is going to be about X-rays and their use in the medical field. Here's how X-rays were discovered. They were produced by the study of cathode rays and discovered by German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen. This radiation was associated with the cathode ray tube, and it was an accidental discovery. A cathode ray tube was covered in black paper with a piece of fluorescent material nearby on a workbench. The paper glowed in the dark when the cathode ray tube was turned on, although no light was escaping from the tube, and this glow stopped when the tube was turned off. Here is a picture showing the experiment that caused the accidental discovery of X-rays. Next, I'm going to explain why X-rays are called X-rays. They knew this was a different ray because cathode rays cannot travel in air or through glass walls of the tube. Also, the fluorescence appeared when the paper was located 2 meters away from the tube. Therefore, radiation could not be the cathode rays. Röntgen called them X-rays because the letter X represents an unknown quantity. Here are some of the features of X-rays. The most noticeable feature of X-rays was their power to pass through many substances. The X-ray passed through the glass walls of the tube and other obstacles in the initial experiment that was used to discover X-rays. Röntgen showed that he could produce a shadow of the bones in his hand by placing his hand between the cathode ray tube and the fluorescent screen, as shown in the picture. He also showed that X-rays were able to expose a covered photographic plate. He did this by taking pictures of the outlines of brass weights inside a box. His study was published, and within a year, doctors began using X-rays to examine broken bones and other dense tissue. Discoveries were made on the harmful effects of X-rays. The dangers of repeated exposure to X-rays was not known in the past, so many doctors and dentists suffered severe radiation effects. More experiments were conducted to discover what X-rays actually were. They were determined to be a form of electromagnetic wave with a very short wavelength and a high frequency. They were produced by collisions of the cathode rays or electrons within the walls of the cathode ray tube or the anode of the tube. The strongest X-ray is produced when the anode is angled at 45 degrees to the electron beam and using high voltages. This is shown in the picture. Here are some of the many reasons why the discovery of X-rays makes our world a better place. About 3.6 billion diagnostic X-rays examinations are performed every year in the world. This leads to avoiding unnecessary surgeries and accurately being able to diagnose certain broken bones and other injuries. For another example, after a CT scan, which is a type of X-ray of the chest, the treating doctor's leading diagnosis changes 41% of the time. Also, after a CT scan on the abdomen, a treating doctor's diagnosis changes 51% of the time. This proves how X-rays make doctors' predictions a lot more accurate. The last example is that X-rays are used to detect cancers in organs and may also treat tumors by damaging the DNA of cancerous cells. The use of X-rays to detect cancer helps the doctors treat the patient as quickly as possible, which also increases the chances of their survival in effectively removing the cancer. Lastly, I will show a video demo on how X-rays work in the medical field.
X-ray technology utilizes high-energy rays that can pass through certain body tissue and create imagery vital to diagnosis and treatment. The X-ray machine is composed of an X-ray tube that contains a pair of electrodes or conductors called a cathode and an anode. The cathode is a filament that releases energy with the introduction of an electrical current, much like that of a light bulb. The cathode energy is released in the form of electrons. The anode, located on the opposite end of the X-ray tube, is a disc made of tungsten, a material that attracts the electrons. When the electrons released from the cathode come in contact with the tungsten, they release energy in the form of photons. These highly energized photons are channeled through a lead cylinder and a series of filters, creating an X-ray beam. The X-ray beam is a high-energy beam that can be absorbed only by dense body tissues, such as bone. During an X-ray, a radiographic film is placed behind the patient, and the patient is placed between the film and the X-ray machine. The X-ray machine then focuses the energy beam at the specific area of the patient's body. As the X-ray energy passes through the patient's body, the photons of the beam reach the film and cause a chemical reaction. The areas where X-ray energy passes through the body become black, while the areas where energy is absorbed by the bones appear white. This process produces a radiographic, which is commonly referred to as an X-ray.
Thank you for watching, and here's a list of all of the sources I used to complete this project.